The Bank of England has a dual mandate to maintain price and financial stability via monetary and macroprudential policy, respectively. Coordinated with fiscal policy, which is established legislatively, the bank is a backbone to the British and global financial systems. But against the backdrop of the financial crisis and ensuing Great Recession, the European debt crisis, the pandemic, US-China and US-EU trade tensions, and the Russo-Ukrainian war, it seems that stability has seldom been so challenging to safeguard. Artificial intelligence and machine learning afford an opportune expansion and rethinking of the tools central banks deploy to regulate this increasingly complex world. The 2007-2008 financial crisis prompted supervisory initiatives that mobilized global efforts to compile loan-by-loan and security-by-security databases. This kind of granular and timely data set fertile ground for AI and ML, which can help policymakers overcome the shortcomings of traditional macroeconomic time series analyses, including long time lags and linearity assumptions. Of course, many ML approaches are cross-sectional, meaning time is not explicitly accounted for. For this reason, reinforcement learning, an ML paradigm with explicit inclusion of time, holds particular appeal in the policy context. Hence, this exploration of the use cases and risks of AI and ML at the Bank of England will be anchored in and guided by a simple RL model. Let's assume the dynamics of an economy's output gap and inflation rate are governed by these equations, constructed such that the output gap decreases as the interest rate increases and vice versa. Meanwhile, inflation changes in the same direction as output gap. These changes do not happen instantaneously, but over time, and the timescale is modeled by these parameters. Here, Gaussian noise is added to create random fluctuation. Put otherwise, using the vocabulary of RL, the central bank is our agent. It relies on inflation, or the state of its environment, to set its real interest rate. In other words, interest rates represent our agent's action space. The agent's reward function is based on how closely it attains its 2% inflation target and 0% output gap target. Of course, these numbers and relations are chosen completely arbitrarily and are only relevant in the vacuum of this miniaturized example. We use a Q-learning algorithm. This is a standard RL algorithm to train this model. Here we see the results outputted by the trained model. The Q table tabulates the possible actions the bank can take. Each cell is a state action pair to which a value has been assigned, and the policy that the bank should follow is determined by the action that has the highest value at a given state. As we can see, the policy obtained makes intuitive sense. When inflation is too high, the interest rate should be raised. When inflation is too low, the interest rate should be lowered. The time evolution of inflation and output gap shown here demonstrate that the policy does a great job at keeping these parameters close to target. Researchers recently made use of a much more sophisticated deep RL model to solve this very problem and concluded that the policy outperformed existing rules in the literature. But seeing as our model is only as good as the data we input, we may ask how this data can be improved. Some central banks are employing real-time fruit and vegetable prices, which are web scraped and processed into an index every day to improve short-term inflation forecasts. As for output gap, algorithms have been developed that process real-time datasets of over 500 macroeconomic indicators to forecast GDP growth. Irrespective of the purpose for which an algorithm is built, it is imperative that it undergoes thorough troubleshooting before deployment, as well as continued vigilance post-deployment. In crises such as the ones mentioned earlier, the widespread use of ML could undermine the bank's response by promoting uniformity, procyclicality, and herding behaviors in the financial system. And even worse, the black box nature of these tools could obfuscate these issues until it is too late. After all, we do not know precisely why our model achieved its solution, nor can we ascertain that it does not promote the downstream buildup of risks. Ultimately, ML models answer the problem of prediction and not that of causality. Causality should be inferred by comparing the policy to its counterfactual, ideally via a randomized control group. This is an important reminder that ML and econometrics are and must remain extensions of one another. Overall, as both a producer and user of big data, the Bank of England is in an ideal position to lead by example in the central bank community to ensure that AI and ML are responsibly transformed into policy-making tools for tomorrow's prediction problems. Thank you.